其實德國嗰個非收呢一個即係核電，又或者好多其他國家嗰個即係非收呢個核電，咁其實本身就唔係因為簡單，即係啲人技術上邊認識到呢樣嘢，或者係純粹嘅呢個咩嘢，而家仲有一樣嘢咧係因為運動，因為社會運動，因為社會嘅鬥爭。如果冇呢一個反核嘅運動，其實即係咧核電嘅非收係唔會出現。咁所以咧就係即係我哋回翻到一樣嘢，我哋呢一節咧就係想從運動嘅角度嚟到去講呢一個咧就係即係對核能嘅質疑，而且仲有一樣嘢其實咧就係即係我自己個人覺得啦，再生能源唔係一個簡單嘅技術嘅問題嚟嘅。如果我哋維持咧整個嘅社會制度不變，維持咧大財團控制生產，維持咧呢一種嘅即係大財團鼓勵下嘅即係瘋狂消費主義。我唔覺得呢個即係咧就係再生能源就可以解決到呢個問題。咁所以咧就係我哋咧就係即係請今次咧我哋有呢個即係2年前請過即係Wolfgang 我哋舊朋友啦嚇，即係話嚟嘅。咁今年我哋再請過嚟，咁而且咧但係我哋希望佢講多啲就係咩嘢？就係話除咗反核運動之外，我哋點樣可以喺社會運動嘅平面，喺即係基層市民嘅平面，或者嚟到去咧就係咧即係使到再生能源係。即係 work for the people, work for the environment 嘅啊，我哋請Wolfgang。
Well, good afternoon. Thank you all. Good afternoon to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here again. Actually, I'm really happy. Thank you for the invitation. 2 years ago, when I was here, I had a talk at length on the history of the anti-nuclear movement in Germany. I don't want to repeat this all, but let me just start about 4 years ago. The phasing out of nuclear energy in Germany. 4 years ago, there was half a year or the summer before Fukushima. The then new government, the conservative liberal government, actually now we have a new one, the same chancellor still, Merkel, but the new government. The conservative liberal government decided, after huge pressure from the corporations, from the energy corporations, so to phasing out. It is we had a nuclear phasing out law since 2001, but this government just revoked it. And what you see here is a huge protest against that. It was several 10,000, I think up to 100,000. One of the biggest anti-nuclear protests we had. That was in September 2010, just about half a year before Fukushima happened. But our protests then were not successful in the moment. But this huge mobilization we had took on somehow in a way nobody could expect, but because when the accident in Fukushima happened, immediately there were protests all over the country, in many cities, and it culminated somehow at the end of March. We had huge manifestations in several big cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Cologne and Munich. 250,000 people turned out. That were actually the biggest anti-nuclear protest we had ever. So in this situation, only in this situation then, the government decided, especially it was the Chancellor Merkel, who decided we have to do something, because there was really a political crisis emerging from that. There were some other problems not related to nuclear or energy issues, why the government was really in trouble, and then they decided they had to do something on this front, and then what they basically did is reinstalling the phasing out law we had before. So you heard that from Michael shortly before. Then 8 nuclear power plants were shut down, mainly the older ones, and two of them were really actually not running then for 2 or 3 years because of accidents. And but 9 nuclear power plants, although they are basically not needed, as you would see, are still running. And this is actually, if you look at the numbers, the power they provide, this is more than the half. It's just about 40%. Shut down, and they have very long, still very long scheduled shutdown time, and most of the shutdowns will actually happen lately in 2019 and the following years, very shortly, and I'm quite sure that will be a critical time, because it really looks like it, if they are putting this together so that we will have a problem to adapt the system, the energy supply system, in such a short time. Maybe. Okay, let's see how it developed in terms of electricity produced. And you can see that the renewables overtook nuclear in around 2010, 2011 actually. And just to explain the renewables, this is wind energy, this is hydropower, this is wind energy, this is hydropower. This is quite constant for many years now, and if there's new hydropower built in Germany, it's small, really small scale hydropower, so it's not playing such a big role. It's also because of the north of the country is quite flat, so there's not so much possibilities for hydropower in Germany. And then you have biomass here. This is mainly gasified, how do you call that? Shit, actually, from cows, and a lot of maize, which is gasified. And then you have up here you have the solar, which is we're extremely expanding, which actually this didn't show much. We had then in the years 2011, 2010, 2011, 2012, something like 7.5 gigawatt each year newly installed. It was really a huge boom, which drove the prices down. Actually, it was in this year it was the biggest market in the world, Germany, which is now China and Japan. But you see, nuclear is still running, but still takes some years to overcome nuclear energy. To demonstrate the development, where is the electricity produced, you can see here nuclear at its highest point around 2000 had something like 30% of the energy produced, and it's dropped to 50.4% in 2013. On the other side, renewable came from very low, 3.6% in 1990, which was mainly hydro. And now we are at 23.4%. This is just the production. If you then consider that a lot of energy, electricity is exported actually by Germany, and that nuclear power plants are using up a lot of the electricity they're producing, and if you calculate the how much renewable contributes to consumption, then the figure should be more like 26% now, which is, I think, quite good, but it's not the best in the world. Denmark, for example, has 33% only of wind coming. Electricity only coming from windmills in Denmark last year, 33%. They had one day where the windmills in December produce about 120% of the consumption. So they have to export a lot of wind-generated electricity. The aim of the Danish government is to have by 2030 50% of the electricity need coming from windmills alone. So, coming to the question I ask again and again in Hong Kong, does Germany need French nuclear power plants? There's a very simple, easy answer: no, not at all. And actually, Germany is producing much more electrical energy than it consumes, and this surplus is growing year by year. 2012, for example, it was 23 billion kilowatt hours. That was a new record then. But the next year, in 2013, we had an even bigger record. That was 33 billion kilowatt hours of electricity energy netto exported. There's a lot more export and import ongoing because well, Germany has something like, I don't know, 9 neighboring countries, and so cross-border energy trade is very common in all over Europe now. So, but these are the netto numbers, and you can see here that we really don't need nuclear power plants or other plants from other countries. To the contrary, Germany is exporting, and German export are driving out, for example, in the Netherlands, gas power plants, which are actually much better for the climate than the coal power plants or the lignite plants, even which we use in Germany. So the German exports are actually a problem, and it's not our problem that we would have to import. So the other questions. The other question is, what's about the reliability and predictability of solar and wind? So let's talk. Let's talk about the predictability. Solar and wind are predictable. If you have a weather forecast model and you combine it with information on where you have solar, how much, and where you have wind, then you can predict pretty well how much electricity you will have the next day from it or the day after. So that's actually what they do in Denmark a lot. So you can plan with that. But of course, you need to be flexible, because production looks like that. Let's take a minute to explain this graph. This is the red line up here. The normal way. The red line up here is electricity consumption over the day, and it's about February, just last February 2014, all over Germany. And at the bottom you see the production of different renewable kinds. The green one is biomass, which is, as you can see, which is very continuously producing. Up on top of the biomass is hydropower. This small line you see, that's not such a big contribution in Germany. It's hard to expand actually. Then the dark blue one is wind, and you can see how wind is fluctuating. And then the yellow one is solar energy, which is well, every day. But you see, of course, you don't have solar energy at night. So yeah. So then comes the old plants we had. For example, the question was, couldn't we just let the nuclear power plants die? Well, you should know that nuclear power is it's something like this at this order, but it's running through all the time at the same level. It's extremely unflexible. nuclear power is extremely unflexible, and it just doesn't fit with that. So we have a problem. Nuclear power can't fill these gaps. You need something to fill these gaps. But nuclear power can't. It's much too unflexible, as well as lignite plants, actually. So the more nuclear power and the more lignite we do have, the harder it is to establish more and more renewables. So, and this is the reason why the big corporations which are running the nuclear power plants and the lignite, which is more or less the same corporations, are now pressing so hard against expanding renewables more, because it's really cutting into their business. And you should know, to shut down regularly a nuclear power plant takes days, and to restart it also takes days. And what you need is you need plants which can act within minutes, hours and minutes, and this would be gas plants, gas-fired plants, actually. So, but you also need some other solutions. Well, I talked already about gas. What you also need is a lot of small cogeneration plants. That's actually what they do in Denmark. In Denmark, they outlawed the building of new centralized coal plants already in the 1990s, and they made it mandatory that you have to have a use of energy of at least, I think, 60 or 70%, which you can't with a huge nuclear plant. This is because of physics. You can, you can maybe about 50% of the chemical energy in the coal can be converted into electrical energy, and the rest just goes off as heat. And if you don't have a need for the heat, then it's wasted. But if you have cogeneration, like using the heat for industrial processes, for example, or for heating, or you can also use it for cooling, actually, the heat, like it's how the refrigerator works, huh? Getting coolness from heat. So it makes much more sense to have small co-generating plants where you would use the whole energy of whatever you burn, you combust. So that could be coal, but better would be biomass like wood, or it could be gas, natural gas, but it could also be biogas, which is basically, if you treat it well, if you get off all these compounds you don't need, then it's the same. It's methane, CH4. So that would be one option. Another option would be the management of big consumers, which are mainly industrial consumers, or big cooling houses, or that you. There are quite some companies which are a little bit flexible on the electrical use, and if you made them somehow, like, for example, by market incentives, or just, I don't know how, different ways. Let's say by market incentives, you make them to use the energy then, or the electricity then, when it's when we have a lot of them, like a lot of wind, or during daytime in summer when we have a lot of solar energy. So you can do this, so to fill somehow the gaps. And then, but the biggest issue will be storage, actually, storage facilities, and I will dig into that. If you're interested, then we can discuss it later, because this is a really big chapter, and I'm more. I was asked to talk more about social movements, not so much about technical things. Coming to the next question, the biggest and last question, maybe. The transition of the energy system a kind of a social reform? And I think in a way it is. First, we should make clear that the energy transition, and not only in Germany, but I'm talking about the German experience, is clearly a very political thing. It's not just about technical issues, as I said it before. It's not. We can't convince the big corporations to say no to the profits they can make with the old nuclear power plants. It's not a question of convincing them, but it's a question of political pressure. So, which we were at one critical point in history. Actually, we were able to generate this political pressure in March 2011. But I'm quite sure that at the end of this decade, when the last plants will be to shut down, then they will come up again with that they want to prolong the lifespan of the nuclear power plants, because they are just, the old nuclear power plants are just like money printing machines, because the capital invested in it has been written off for a long time, so they can make lots of money with these old nuclear power plants. So, yeah, I said that already. To get where we are now, to the reason why we could generate this political pressure is that we have a strong, I'd say, long-lasting tradition of social movements fighting against nuclear power. Of course, it had its up and downs. There had times when the issue was very low. But we see it all over again when now some energy issues come up locally. Then you always will meet people who have been active in the 70s and 80s already. Also young people, but we are everywhere. We have at least in the cities, we have everywhere people who have this long tradition of fighting against nuclear power, fighting for to reclaim the power system, actually. Well, and okay, I mentioned that already, that our struggle is far from being over. Yeah. Right now, in the middle of how to say, in the middle of a fight that the government, the new government, Social Democrats and Conservatives again, really want to slow down the development of renewable energies. They want to invent ceilings that so it is maximum levels of new solar power generators and new windmill generators. They want more or less totally shut down the new biogas production. They don't want to have new biogas production, and they want to make it much more difficult for corporations to build their own small windmills. No, not small windmills, but small, just smaller numbers, just 3, 4, 5, something like that. Corporations usually set up. Actually, windmills have become quite big already. So what we are seeing is that the energy transition is reorganizing the structure of ownership in the power sector. The big corporations are losing market share, and that's why they are so desperate about trying to slow down renewables. They are also losing money, or they are starting to losing money. So they had some very good profits in the last years, but 2013 seems to be very bad years, and the outlook for them is quite bad, because well, the way the market is designed, the renewable energy is very much putting pressure on the price of electric energy on the market. Not for consumers, but for what they can get on the retail market. No, not retail market. Well, where the big users and the big companies buy the electricity, and so the corporations have a problem that they can run their coal plants hardly profitable anymore because electricity has become so cheap because of renewable. So and another important aspect is that in many cities we have well, campaigns pressing for to have either new local utilities or to get back the old once public owned utilities which are now privatized. So this is also well, how to say, we try to regain control of the electricity production, to get it out of the hand of the corporates. And so that just to show you how many small energy cooperatives have sprung up in the last years. So this is really, I mean, people are organizing themselves. Instead of bringing their money to the banks, they are looking for ways to invest in renewables, and so they set up small corporations to have maybe they rent some rooftop area, or they put up somewhere some windmills. So this is really became kind of a movement. Because of that, and because of kind of a tradition in West Germany, also going back to the 1980s, the majority of the renewable facilities like solar power and wind is still in small private ownership. So the big corporations are just hardly involved. The only thing they are doing is offshore. Offshore is a very expensive project, especially in Germany, as it is done very far from the coast, and the electricity produced there will be very expensive. But this is something then you're talking about billions, and that is where big corporations are more comfortable. They just from this, not just the mindset, but also from the structure of the corporations. They need centralized structures. They can't invest 1 billion in 200 or 300 different small projects. They must found one project where they can put all their money. But on the other hand, that it is also the problem, because by technical reasons, if you renewable is very much about decentralization. Of course, you can try it in a centralized way, like setting up offshore wind parks. But you can do it also decentralized, and that's something the corporation can cope with. But this is something you can try to, in a way, democratize a society by that. And well, an important argument and aspect in Germany actually is that the decentralization of energy production also decentralizes profits. So it brings profits and income to local communities, which are otherwise quite deprived, actually. So Germany, like in every big industrial country, the countryside is very, how to say, there's hardly anything left, any income source. So people have to move in, or at least to commute to the cities. So, but renewable energy could be a way to reverse this process. But we shouldn't think that everything is positive. Also, of course, it's still capitalism, and also in this field, big players can and do evolve. And of course, you can, if it goes all the market's way, just the liberalized market's way, then you will have centralization in this field as well, which we could see actually. So that's the end of my talk. Now I'm open to questions.